Hi, I'm Casey Bell, and you're watching Writer to Writer Interviews. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Writer to Writer Interviews. I'm your host, Casey Bell, and today's episode is different, unlike the other episodes, because on this episode, I will not be interviewing or be interviewed. We have two wonderful writers who will be interviewing one another. We have Richard Haiduck and Jay Sooknanan. I sure hope you enjoy today's episode.
Well, so Jay, tell us a little bit about yourself and your connection to writing.
So me, I'm born and raised in Brooklyn. My, parents split up when I was born. I live a good life. I'm in both of my parents' life now, and blessed through my path. I was always very loved and very gifted. I feel like God blessed me. Not sure like I'm so special, right? But I felt very blessed. And in my teenage years, when I was younger, I was like a great student, great kid. In my teenage years, I went down to my rough patch, woke up. Then when I woke up, I was gonna go be a doctor. That's what I was dreaming at 5 years old. So I started working towards that. I just saw that down that road of becoming a doctor, I started working with monks, became an EMT, all these transitions in my life. The real tools that healed me, right? Which was like having purpose, knowing my why, meditation, yoga, working out, motivation, being around good association. So all those things is what really got me on track. I realized, through my purpose, how I could serve the world, got into business and all those things. But what got me into writing was when I was going from an employee to entrepreneur. When I was 4.5 and I came up from Trinidad, I was born here in Brooklyn. I'm in Queens now, but I was born in Brooklyn. When I came up from Trinidad again, I saw my mom having her own challenges. Even though she did everything, we had everything we needed. She had like her own financial challenges being a single mom, just in general. And I learned not to ask for anything. So when I got into real estate at first, because I was in real estate before, I would make phone calls, always had a good response, but then didn't feel like, I felt like I was asking for something. And when I was younger, I learned not to ask for anything. So I had this part in my life where in that 2 weeks, because I didn't want to ask for anything, I stopped making phone calls. And because I didn't want to actually do the work, and me, I'm the kind of person, if I don't do the work, I get upset at myself. I numb my mind. And this voice came into my head for just 2 weeks of not listening to motivation, not meditating, not working out. This voice came into my mind and said, Jay, if life is so bad, why don't you just jump out the window? I'm like, what? I never thought I would think that way. And said, Jay, if life is so bad, just, open the window and jump out. And I'm like, wow, okay. And so I woke up, got into meditation again, working out, closed my first deal in 3 weeks, bought my first car, got into self-help, a lot of self-development. And in the last 3 months of this 9-month journey I went on of self-development, that's actually when I wrote my first book. I was going to write about my life, but then I didn't see it being of service. So I said, well, I have all these tools that I'm using that's helping me get to abundance. Let me write about that. And that's actually because I was with a group of people that were writing books and doing things like that. So I just decided to put one out.
Jay, was there a particular trigger for when you decided to write the book? It sounds like there was a whole accumulation of things, but was there one moment where you said, Eureka, it's time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always knew I was going to write a book, but I was going to wait till I created success. But I was on this path and I saw all these tools that heal me and made me more conscious and have more direction. So I wasn't indecisive and moved forward in life. And that's when I was with a group of people in this leadership program. Some of the people were writing books. So I said, you know what? That just resonated with me. I said, I'll jump on that. And that was it for me.
What's the message you want your readers to get from your book? It sounds like there's quite a lot of things packed in there.
Well, the book is super simple. It's very direct, straightforward. I would say for people to find their purpose. It doesn't have to be extravagant, just something. Have direction. and take care of yourself along this journey. I believe it's very important to have direction, but I also believe it's very important to take care of your mind, your body. And how do you do that? Is you implement routines, you keep your values aligned. If you have a purpose, you don't want to get turned by the world to change who you really are inside. Keep your character, all those things. So I just teach people to be at peace while they go on their journey, and some simple techniques to keep it there. So that's pretty.
Has the book had any effect on you personally? Is your life different now that you're a published author?
Yeah, right away. Actually, I had, I got into schools. I had 20 plus speaking engagements before I got into the schools. Then I worked with 30 schools so far, just based off of the book getting me into the schools. So, that alone got me like some sort of monetary value. And also the gratitude, the gratifying feeling of serving people through the work that I believe in. But it's been a journey, and it's also empowered me to know, hey, the things you are talking about works, people need it, and you're here to serve people. So it keeps you humble as well in a way.
Is that now your full-time work is doing the speaking and the book support things, or do you still have other work that you're doing kind of in parallel?
So I wrote my second book, didn't put it out yet. I'm going to start putting that out soon. I also have two businesses, the ones where I speak and the one where I help people retire young. And they're both aligned, to be honest. And then I also take care of my father.
So this was kind of the intersection of your book and my book. Mine is focused on retirees. How do you think this had, and you mentioned you work with people who are retiring young. Does this have any particular effect on people as they're entering that next stage of life of retirement?
What has an effect?
Does the message of your book, is it particularly important to people as they're entering their retirement?
I think it's important anywhere in life. You should always have direction. I don't care if what age you are. You should know what you're working towards. Me personally, I'm not of that age, but that's what I'm thinking. Like, I just know direction is important, and we do want to actually. I believe the book is very highly important. That everybody needs to actually. Me personally, I feel have to have meditative practices. It could be prayer, it could be running, it could be working out, it could be cooking, whatever it is for somebody. They need to have something to relax and bring down their thoughts, and just really have routines set up so they stay there. Like, people shower every day. They should take time to relax every day.
Do you have any kind of final message for the listeners, something you want them to take away from this discussion?
Just to check out the books. And just reach out to me anytime. I don't know if we're putting our contact information now or later, but they can reach out to me via anytime. And my name is Jay Sooknanan. You could Google me, you could YouTube me, you could Facebook me, Instagram me, Jay, last name Sooknanan, Sooknanan. And I'm human. I'm here. I'm willing to serve anytime. I'm not somebody different than you are. Just the association and the guidance that the world gave me is what put me on this path. We're all the same. We're all having a human experience, and I'm just here to serve people. And I believe that you should love yourself, and you have to come to peace with yourself. You have to forgive yourself and forgive others, because if we don't have peace with ourselves, how are we supposed to have world peace? And I believe we're all meant to work together, and I love everybody, and I hope we could just spread love throughout our day and just say hi to one another.
That's great. It sounds like a great book. Congratulations on producing that and the work you're doing with it. Thank you very much, Jay.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you very much.
This book aims to help people understand that many people face periods of anxiety and depression, and to help them get past that. I want to show people how I found my purpose in life and how I'm currently working toward fulfilling that while staying true to my own morals and principles. I am exploring my personal journey from fear and self-doubt to confidence and faith in myself and my life. Wellness and life coach, nutritional therapist, motivational inspirational speaker Jay Sooknanan is the author of Abundance, A Journey from Anxiety and Depression. For more information, go to bodymindandsoulbms.com.
Yeah, thank you for asking those awesome questions. I appreciate it very much. And yeah, you're very intellectual. I love your mindset, your peace, your calm. I would love to hear a little bit more about you, right? Like where you come from, what got you into your line of work, what you do in life, and what made you write these books that you've written.
Okay. A great question. So I was 7 years old and I was convinced I wanted to be an author. And I got a little notepad, and my parents were supportive, and my friends and my teachers and all that. And I started writing a story every day. And I did that for almost a year. No story was longer than one page. And all of the stories were weird fantasy, sci-fi stuff, just very imaginative stuff. And I was convinced that was what I was going to do for my life's work. And that lasted about a year. And then I thought, going out and playing baseball and doing some of those kinds of things is more what being an 8-year-old is about. So I stopped being an author and I came back to it 65 years later. I'd always kind of had this feeling of it'd be interesting, but I never did anything about it. So I went about my life. I was working in the biotech industry, running some companies, being a consultant, mentoring CEOs of biotech startups. And then once I retired, I talked to friends, of course, about what they were doing, what their joy was in their retirement. And I found a whole bunch of them had things that they were doing that even people I'd known for a really long time, I had no idea they were doing it. One of my buddies had been in the Senior Olympics and won a medal and was too humble to say anything about it. And I said, that's an amazing story. That story needs to be told. I talked to some other people. I kept hearing these different stories about what people do in their retirement. And there was this kind of one eureka moment where I just said, these stories need to be assembled and put into a book and told to people so that they can appreciate each other's retirements. So that was really what caused me to write the book. And it's been quite a fun ride.
Nice. So that's awesome. And you said at 7, then at 7 you were writing, and then at 8 you actually got into baseball because you felt like you wanted to do what normal kids were doing. What made you think that what you were doing, like what made you shift? What made you really shift towards that?
I think it was just being an 8-year-old. Kids change their mind, the ability to stay focused on one thing. I think it's hard to say a 7-year-old burns out, but writing a story every day was kind of getting to me. And I just decided I'm going to go do something else. And so I shifted at that point.
Nice. What did you learn from interacting with all these stories that you have in your book? And what was the name of your book?
It's Shifting Gears, 50 Baby Boomers Share Their Meaningful Journeys in Retirement.
Wow.
So I once I decided to write the book, I started asking friends and colleagues to give me ideas of people I should talk to, and I got referrals all across the country of people to talk to that had been referred because they had done something interesting in retirement. I think what the overall learning I got is that this baby boomer generation is still acting like baby boomers. We're activists. We're doing things that stretch our limits. There are a few of us that are couch potatoes, but not very many. There are people doing things, as you put it in your discussion, where they've really found a purpose in life, a passion in life. One of the guys had a really amazing story. Just as he was retiring, he was diagnosed with cancer. And of course, all of his plans, just went, oh man, what am I going to do now? He made some treatment decisions that turned out to be very correct. He was kind of being treated and was recovering, was going into remission. And he turned to his cancer doctor and he said, what can I do to help you? You've been so good to me. And he said, I was sure what they do is say, write me a check. We could use some money around here. And he said something completely opposite to that. They said, we need a cancer house here where patients can stay while they're being treated, where the families of patients can stay while they're being treated, and that it can be a free service of the community. Can you help us with that? That became his new purpose, his new passion. He spent several years building this cancer house. And at the end of it, he said, this was the thing that gave me the greatest joy in my life. I worked for 40 years. I did a lot of different things. I'm proud of those. But getting this cancer house built was something really special to me. So the book is filled with stories, some of which are just kind of fun and almost trivial. Some are very passionate and full of purpose. There's some about working in retirement. There's some about volunteering in retirement. But between the 50 stories, I tried to get a cross-section of what people do in their retirement, but most importantly, how it makes them feel. Why are they doing it? What are the rewards to them? What are the good things that come to them? And what are the things that make it difficult? What are the challenges? So it's a whole range of different stories. I've kind of said to people, if you're reading along and one story doesn't connect to you, just turn the page and go on to the next one, because each story is very different from the one before it.
Yeah, in our organization, we actually say, treat it like a grocery store. When you go to a grocery store, you don't take everything, right? So take what you need and take what you need. So I think that's awesome. So what do you want people to get out of it, though? Like, what's your focus? Why did you go out there and put out this work? I know it's very inspirational. It's very motivational. It shows people that they have so much more in life and that you could do so much more. But what happened for you through writing it, and what do you want people to get out of it?
I made a decision in the early days that there are so many good self-help books for retirement. Here's a list of the 23 things you should do when you retire and all that sort of thing. And I said, those books have a place and they're right for certain people, but this book will be completely non-prescriptive. There is no part of the book that says, here's the answer. All this book does is say, here's a story. Does that connect to you or not? If not, go on to the next one. And all of the reader benefit is by inference. They read the story and they say, oh, that applies to me, or that applies to something I could do differently. So the thing that I wanted to have here is a series of examples from which people could draw their own conclusions. I've had a number of people in the book business, as well as friends of mine, say, Richard, you've got to give them the answer. You've got to say, well, this is what this all means. And I said, no, I don't have to. I can put the stories out there and let people draw their own conclusions as to which ones are relevant for them.
Nice. Max, how did you go about publishing it and getting it out to people?
So kind of a couple steps in that process. I hired a professional editor who had worked in 3 of the big 5 publishing houses, and she helped me to kind of craft it into a book. And she was a terrific help. I then went down the path of saying, should I get an agent and go to, the large publishing houses? And I thought, well, I can network, meet people at different conferences and stuff and get to know them and have them give my book a chance and consider it. I went to my first writers conference and I started that process. And then about 2 weeks later, COVID happened. And so now my selling the book process became, here's an email from somebody you've never met. How'd you like to look at my book? And in a flood of other things. So I was completely unsuccessful at getting either an agent or a large publishing house to respond positively to the book. And so at that point, and along the way, I had been parallel tracking to say, it's likely this will self-publish. I worked with an organization in South Carolina called Publish, who knows kind of the mechanics of book publishing. They helped me with the cover, they helped me with the distribution, they helped me with a lot of those things. And they're now helping me develop the promotion for the launch of the product as well. So that's been a lot of new stuff. I suspect you've gone through a similar set of things, maybe using different tools and different techniques, but it's a whole new world, and it takes some getting used to, and some parts of it are not what you would at first think they would be.
I think it's a beauty that we could even publish stuff now, and like it's so simple that we, even if it doesn't go far, it does. We actually could just put it out there, and back in the day, I don't think it was that simple. So I think it's awesome that we could actually have it.
Yeah, it's a great privilege to be able to do that.
I'm sure it'll touch a lot of people, and the biggest thing I've seen in sales is word of mouth, and is just let people know to spread it out. And I'm sure you could actually, figure out like that group of people, how to get to talk to those people that are actually retiring, or people that, I think actually that book will serve a lot of people right now. How many people are unemployed?
Right, yeah.
Right, that don't have a purpose. And that'll show you that people have purpose, and, to actually make fun of yourself a little bit. It sounds like that book's really funny and comical in a way, and yet still inspiring and motivational. So, so I think people could get a lot of it no matter what age they're in.
Some of the stories are, I would say, more about the challenges. They're not all super optimistic stories. There's a lot about resilience, going through a tough time and coming out the other side of it. There's 2 divorces in the book. There's one very astonishing story about a guy and his wife who moved to their retirement location, and about a year later, their house burned to the ground and they had to start over. And they had their retirement all figured out. They had it all worked out. And then this fire came in the middle of the night. They had this harrowing escape story, which they lived to tell about. And then they had to rebuild their lives. And they had to go through an emotional roller coaster too. He said, my first reaction is anger. Why me? I worked hard all my life. We had this house paid off. We had our retirement all worked out, and now it's gone. That just doesn't seem fair. And I think that's a natural first reaction, but then he had to work through that and then say, okay, maybe it's not fair, but that's what happened. Now what are we going to do? And the sequel to that story is even spookier. So they bought another house, they moved into that other house, and then the fires that just came through California were threatening his community. They actually had to evacuate the house, the second house, and leave town, not knowing if the second house was going to burn down. And it turns out they left, but the house did not burn down, although part of the property did burn, some of the trees and stuff. So, but going through that twice, I just can't imagine what that's like. I can't imagine how tough that is.
Yeah, it sounds like a very, like, I don't know if this is even a word, but humanistic book. Like, you can relate with so many people. We'll all go through experiences as a human. So what would you want, how would you want people to reach out to you, get the book, or whatever information what other information would you like to share with everyone else?
And so the book is available on Amazon as an ebook and hardcover. I also have a website and a lot of social media stuff, and I'm thinking Casey's probably going to put that on the cover note of this podcast. But my website is richardhaiduck.com. It's HAIDUCK.com. Then you get updates on the book and various blogs that are done, and this podcast will be on that website as well, so that people can kind of keep up with not just the book but the other activities around it.
Hey, are you a writer, a songwriter, a playwright, screenwriter, author? You write articles, poetry. If you're a writer, I want to sit down and talk with you. Go to my website, authorkcbell.com, and click on Writer to Writer Interviews for more information. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this message. Shifting Gears is based on interviews with retirees telling how they are shifting gears in their retirement. Sometimes they shift smoothly, sometimes they grind the gears, and often they take some time to find their groove. The stories reveal the rich abundance of retirement ventures, from the exotic to the mundane. Discover their joys, challenges, and inspirations that were part of their journey in the next stage of life. Shifting gears will whet your appetite with first-hand tales of retirement so varied your head will spin. Sarah Zepgeber, PhD author of Essential Retirement Planning for Solo Agers. The wisdom in these pages helped me realize this about our golden years. They could be our best chance to understand ourselves, live exactly how we want, and maybe even do something amazing. Matt Fuchs, journalist covering healthcare and aging news, Washington Post contributor. For more information and more reviews of this book, go to richardhaiduck.com. Jay, you go first for this one, because there might be some novice writers watching who are looking for a publisher, and I always like to ask authors who they publish with, because I don't know if you've experienced, I haven't personally experienced any of them, but I've heard some publishing companies out there stealing money, not being trustworthy, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm always trying to find publishing companies that other authors experience with that are trustworthy, that are good, and they're not going to be taken advantage of. So who did you publish with, Jay?
Yeah, so actually the first book I published with Balboa Press, and they were a good company, very responsive. They did all the work they said they would do. They were good for their word. That's the biggest thing I could say. And that was pretty much it about them. When we did certain things, I didn't do too much marketing with them. I got into the school, so I was already making money, so I didn't really follow up. I then it was my fault. I priced the book wrongly. They actually suggested a price that I should have went with, and I ended up republishing it on Amazon so I could lower the price, because it would have charged me money where I didn't have to get charged this way. I also published some extra journals on Amazon through it to actually accompany the book. And the second book, I'm really thinking about using this other company, Newman's Springs Publishing, that this lady that has written books and has even been endorsed by Deepak Chopra, she had recommended me try out that company. So I'm thinking most likely I'm going to go with that company for the second book. But either way, I've had a great experience. To me, the biggest thing is you have to make the book come alive. You have to market it. You have to push it out there. And that's been my experience, and that's what I've felt since I even put the book out there. Like, if I don't make it something, if I don't make it come alive, it's not gonna come alive.
Okay, and Richard, who did you use?
Let me make one comment first. I was very pleasantly surprised at how supportive the writing community, the authors and publishers, how communal it is, and how people were willing to help. Often, with no money changing hands, but just doing it to be nice. Over a period of time, I got 6 different authors who became kind of mentors to me. A couple of them I'd known before. The others were complete strangers, and they just helped. So that overall aspect I found very useful. I published with an organization in South Carolina called Publish, who has been honest and straightforward throughout. There's kind of a division of duties of what do they do and what do I do. And just as Jay was saying, the promotion of the book, you've got to be the driver for it. Nobody else is going to do that for you unless you're with one of the top 5 publishers who may do it and not even sure about that. And I would add just one other component, kind of a plug for an organization called the Nonfiction Authors Association, which is kind of a group of nonfiction authors that meet periodically, have a bunch of kind of webinars. They've got a conference coming up later this month. And it allows first-time authors to get the wisdom of authors that have been around for a while. And similarly, here in the Bay Area, there's a group called BAPA, the Bay Area Independent Publishing Association. And it's the same sort of thing. It's a group of about 100 local authors who kind of work through problems together. So there's this whole community of things. The publisher is a key part of it, but the rest of that support network, I think, is really critical.
Okay, thank you. And We're at 5 minutes left. Last question, Richard, you first. If there is an author, dead or alive, you could have a conversation with, who would it be and why?
He's dead, but Studs Terkel, who was way before your time, he wrote a book in the 70s called Working. And what he did was he said to people, he did the same sort of interview process. He said, tell me about your work, but then tell me how you emotionally connect to it. Tell me what's important. Tell me what you hate about your job. And he interviewed over 100 different people. And when I first started writing the book, I said, I want to do for retirees what Studs Terkel did for working people. It was a magical book. It just captured the essence of the different things that people do in their work and how they connect to it. So I'd love to have a conversation with Studs Terkel. He's still got his radio show tapes that are being distributed out of an organization in Chicago. But he's been a real idol of mine.
Okay. Jay, same question?
Yeah, so for me, I actually was never into reading or anything of that nature, to be honest. I always liked good books, like I liked Maniac McGee and Little Thing when I was a little kid, but I never focused on reading. I was more just go outside and do things. Some people that I respect, I would love to connect with, is like John Maxwell. His books are actually phenomenal. I would love to sit down and talk with him. So if that was somebody, that would be John Maxwell, now that I'm thinking about it. But I'd love to connect with Deepak, Oprah, like one of these big world changers, because I want to work on world peace. And I think they would have a profound effect on that piece of my life. I actually have vision board pictures with them and stuff like that. I do want to become connected with them to actually get at the message and how we could actually heal the planet, so and heal people. And so those would be some of the biggest people. I love all of them. I respect all of them, but I just love people in general and respect everybody. So I don't have any favoritism. I just know they could have a big effect on the works and actually changing the world.
That is all the time we have for today. Thank you for watching, and thank you to Jay and Richard for spending their time sharing their journey with us. Thank you again for watching. Have a great day.